So, welcome to our breathing space practice for the 4th of May. So, may the force be with you today in your practice. Today, we're going to do our usual, a little practice on body, breath, thoughts, and feelings. And I'm going to continue reading through this book, Falling Awake by Jon Kabat-Zinn. And today we're on a chapter called Seeing. So I'll invite you to just get yourself settled, arrive into practice, and once we're in there, I'll read you the chapter, maybe while you rest on the breath, and then we'll do our practice from there on. So let's begin by finding a posture. And begin by just settling, grounding, becoming aware of the body, whether you're sitting or lying. Sensing into the limbs, becoming aware of all the points of contact between you and chair or bed or cushion. Sense of arriving into practice. So a posture that invites dignity and alertness, but also comfort and calm. Maybe noticing that transition from doing the word of action and thinking, and noticing what happens as we arrive into this space of just being with what is here. Settling into awareness. Perhaps beginning to become aware of body, breathing, maybe noises in the room. Maybe also aware of this sense of just slowing everything down. Perhaps aware of the body finding its posture, just making little subtle adjustments if you find any places of tension or holding. Checking in on the hands. And then maybe just focusing more on finding the movement of breathing wherever you notice it in the body today. And dropping to this place beneath words, the place of just moment to moment sensation within the body. With each inhale, within each muscle that moves, the expansion or release of lungs or ribs. A flow of air in and out. And maybe also aware of the energy in your system today. Sometimes we arrive into practice and we feel quite calm. And other times it can be a little bit more kind of restless. So the invitation is to continue practicing whatever our energy feels like. Just make it our practice to be curious. What happens as we sit with what is here and just observe. We might notice thoughts or impulses. We can make those part of our practice to observe them as they come and go. Maybe just note a little bit their content, but ultimately, when we notice thinking, we should just recognize it as that. Oh, there's some thinking. Oh, there's an impulse to do something. And then once we have that awareness, we can then invite the focus of our attention back into the breathing. In breath and out breath, and all the sensations that we feel around the breath in the belly, the chest, the back, maybe even the arms or the shoulders, maybe the mouth or the nose. So resting there in the breathing, just feeling all the places in the body where we feel the in-breath, the out-breath, following that flow, almost like being in a hammock, rocked in a gentle breeze, or on a little boat just moving with the waves of the ocean. We can allow ourselves to just rest in the movement of the breathing. You continue that while I read you this extract from Jon Kabat-Zinn's book. And after that, we'll go into a practice. So he starts his chapter with a little quote from Frederick Frank, The Zen of Seeing. We do a lot of looking. We look through lenses, telescopes, television tubes. Our looking is perfected every day, but we see less and less. Never has it been more urgent to speak of seeing. We are onlookers, spectators, subjects we are, that look at objects. Quickly, we stick labels on all that is, labels that stick once and for all. By these labels, we recognize everything, but no longer see anything. So, in our practice, if possible, we drop beneath words, beneath labels or judgments or whatever thoughts might bubble up around the breathing or the sense of whether you feel at ease or restless. See if we can drop beneath those words and labels and just be curious to what happens as we observe the physical sensations that come into awareness. We're going to do a little practice in the body scan, but perhaps a little bit different from usual. So just rest in your breathing while I read you the next part of this chapter, which is about different perspectives. Jon Kabat-Zinn writes, "There is a field near my house that, seen from a certain angle, particularly delights my eye. I pass by the bottom of this field several times a day, and in all seasons as I walk with our dog. Sometimes I'm alone, sometimes with other people, sometimes even without the dog. It doesn't matter. The field is continually offering a curriculum of light and shadow, form and colour to the passer-by, evoking the challenge to sense and drink in any and every way whatever is delivered to eyes, ears, nose, palate, and skin. Every day, every hour, every minute, with every passing cloud, in every weather, with every season, what is here to be seen is different, perpetually changing, morphing with the light and the heat and the season from one aspect to another, like the landscapes of mountains and gorges in the fields of haystacks that enticed Monet to paint from the same spot on multiple easels as the day unfolded, as the seasons turned, capturing the uncapturable light and its mysterious birthing of shape and texture, colour, shadow, and form. The challenge for us is to see that such a display offered up by the world that we inhabit is in fact everywhere. Yet this particular field, resting as it does on the slope of a gentle and uneven hill, with two outcroppings of fieldstone adding to its unevenness, has a special catalytic effect on me, especially when seen from below. Gazing upon it, I am somehow changed, recalibrated, more finely tuned to both inner and outer landscapes. So we're going to see if we can journey through the body today in our body scan, just like Jon Kabat-Zinn walking around his field, and how he can be tuned to both inner and outer landscape. And he just sees this landscape as shape and texture, colour, shadow, form. As we go into our body scan, maybe we can connect to body through the senses, through a sense of texture, shape, temperature, sensation, sense of inner and outer landscape. So I want to invite us to begin today by connecting to the surface of the body. The interface between the inner and the outer landscape. Maybe aware of skin, but also sensations of temperature or clothing on the skin, or pressure where the body meets the chair or the bed beneath you. There's a lot of skin, so we can maybe start down in the feet. Perhaps the feet are in contact with socks or shoes. Perhaps there is a sense of temperature, humidity. Or perhaps maybe there's feet open to the air today, and a sense of the interface between the inner body and that outer landscape of air and temperature. We can bring this up to the legs. Again, just scanning that interface between you and what is in touch with you. Maybe clothing, maybe bed or chair. Seeing if we can get a sense of the form or the texture of the clothing or the surface, just through that sense coming in through the skin, sense of touch or pressure or temperature. We come up through the pelvis. Can we discern just through the sense of touch or awareness of the skin? A sense of shape and form of body. Come up through the torso, the chest and the belly and the back. Again, is there anywhere we feel maybe clothing moving with the breathing? So even without words, without sight, we can sense into the landscape or that interface between the inner and the outer landscape. And come up to the arms and hands. As if we're sensing the outer landscape from within. And bring us up to the neck and the face. Any sense here of tingling or a sense of the touch of lips or eyelids? Sense of the temperature of the room as it reaches the skin of the face. But we could also take our hands and just gently touch them on the thighs or just really anywhere and just be able to sense that interface between the inner world and the outer world. Feeling what it's like to be touched. If you put your hands on the thighs, you get a sense of the contours and the shape of the thighs. You can feel the touch of the hand on different bone or flesh. You can sense that movement from within, like the leg that is being touched. But we could also sense it through the hand that is doing the touching. Feel the different textures, maybe of clothing and the different shape of things like kneecap or thigh muscle. Maybe even a sense of the cushion or the chair that you're sitting on. You feel the difference between you and the world that we live in. This sense of boundary and connection. Feel the hands come alive. All these different sensations as they explore the contours of the thighs, the material of any fabric, maybe even a sense of the temperature of the body. Knowing that every time we do this, it will be slightly different. Different day, different experience. So it's a familiar landscape that we can see and meet in a new way every day. So let's go deeper now with our body scan and see if we can get any sense of muscle and flesh. And rather than scanning through the body, just open awareness to what happens when we turn our curiosity to noticing muscle or flesh in the body. Maybe there's easy noticing of the movement of the breathing, the muscles of the diaphragm and the ribs constantly moving with the breath. The question is, though, what's that landscape like today? The shape and the form and the texture of that movement of breathing today. Seeing it afresh with the eyes of now, but sensing from within. As you walk around a field, you begin to see all these little details, colors of the leaves or the light, the way it falls on different textures in the landscape. And through that casting of light and shadow, we can begin to get a sense of the shape and contours of the land. We notice the breeze through the movement of leaves or grasses. We begin to feel kind of immersed in all the details of nature. So we can do this too, just by immersing ourselves in all the little details of the breathing. We begin to notice exactly how things move in belly and chest. We begin to notice how this might even be felt through the back or the legs. And then let's go beyond that movement of breathing. Maybe tune into other places in the body where we can get a sense of the muscles. If we connect to maybe the legs or the thighs, we get a sense of the girth of the thigh muscles compared to calf muscles, compared to muscles in the feet and the toes. As we come up through back and pelvis, perhaps we feel muscles that are working to hold our posture, or even muscles that are holding tension, that are braced. We can just explore that landscape of sensation, texture, intensity, subtlety. Go into arms and shoulders. Can we notice or discern what is muscle of shoulder, what is muscle of arm, what is muscle of finger, just through exploring this internal landscape. And as we connect to jaw, neck, throat, face, Can we discern the flesh of these regions, the muscles within the cheeks, the forehead, the tongue, the jaw, maybe even the muscles of the lips, and also the muscles of the neck, or even within the throat. You can rest there with your breathing and your body while I read you the next little part of Jon Kabat-Zinn's chapter. So he's in his field, and he says, "This field lies nestled on the hill, sloping up to the east between two other flat fields above and below that are conservation land, and so they grow wild, mostly with grass. To the north is the back of a faded red barn, and beyond that, a cobblestone driveway and an old but well-kept New England farmhouse, white, segmented, obviously elongated over the years, stretching section by skillfully added section toward the oldest, nearest road. Another conservation field on the same slope lies to the south, separated from the fenced-in one by a double row of tall oaks and chokecherries on the other side, and an overarching low rock wall, no doubt dating to colonial times, when the land was first cleared for planting, and all the ancient dug-up black granite stones piled wide and massively along the edges." So as we sit with our mental awareness of body, just as he can discern the way the landscape is kind of set out, he can recognize one field from another, a building from a wall, the north from the south, the upper from the lower, and the structure of the house and the different trees. As we turn attention inward to body, can we discern our own sense of up and down, our own sense of the body's structure, limbs and fingers and toes, torso, and even with our eyes closed, just through the senses, connect to what is alive in the landscape of the body today. Perhaps through sense of touch and pressure with the bed or the mat, we recognize gravity and the sense of up and down. Or maybe even in the inner organs within the body, the sense of gravity at work as the organs settle according to whether we're sitting or lying. We have all these little subtle messages that come from the body that give us so much information about the landscape within and the landscape without. So stay with your breathing and your body. Notice what happens as you just sit there and observe the inner and the outer landscape and get a sense of this body that we're experiencing through sensation. I'll read you the next paragraph, which says, "The field that so captures my eye has a three-tier wooden fence around it, with two hardly visible electric wires set off from each fence post by very visible yellow spacers, set there to contain the two young cows our farmer neighbour keeps there part of each year, his babies. The fence describes a markedly irregular pentagon that for a long time I perceived as a rectangle. Then it took on the look of a trapezoid. Only with extended gazing did it finally reveal itself as actually five-sided. The western, lowermost side of the fence parallels the eastern one above it, and those two are connected to the south as if they were the long-facing sides of a rectangle, the shorter connecting side mounting straight up the hill, paralleling the double line of trees and the rock wall just to its south. 20 feet or so to the north, past the small cowshed built into the bottom western side, the fence cuts diagonally northeast up the hill for a ways. Then there's a gate, where this sloping side meets the shortest fifth side that joins up with the top edge in a right angle. This configuration gives both field and fence an unstudied and an unruly look that hugs the contours of the hill and fits perfectly within the sweep of this landscape. From the bottom right, southwest, my favourite vantage point, the whole of the field is visible, except for the interior of the cowshed and what the shed obscures in my line of sight. I love this particular field. For some mysterious reason, walking below it and unavoidably gazing upon it enlivens my seeing. All is suddenly more vivid in the world. So we'll pause there again, just to rest with body and breath. We come back to just checking in with what's on the outer, what's on the inner. Maybe you notice things have changed. New sensations of temperature, perhaps, on the skin of the body, constantly changing. Perhaps the rhythm of breathing has changed. Or maybe the sensation in limbs has changed. New tingling or buzzing. Maybe new areas of tension or relaxation. Just as he says, as we sit here and just be with our landscape, our internal and external landscape, all is more vivid. As we just let the awareness come to us. And even like that cow barn he talks about, we can be aware of things that we cannot see or we cannot feel. The parts that our awareness are not reaching today. We can just notice what that's like too. And just as he perceived this field as one shape and then through revisiting it again and again began to notice actually the shape was a little bit different. So we too, as we sit with our body in meditation, We have these preconceived, often very ingrained beliefs about our body, perceptions, habits of thinking. But if we just sit and observe and get to know the inner and outer landscape as it is right now, can we allow ourselves to kind of, as it were, have our inner eyes opened to what is actually here? The strength of the body, the living and breathing aliveness of the body. Even if we encounter a twinge or somewhere that feels a little bit uncomfortable, it's still alive. And aren't we grateful that those twinges are sending signals into our awareness? So we know that we might need to be a little bit more careful and tender and gentle with ourselves. The body knows what it needs. And if we're open to listening, perhaps underneath our own preconceived ideas, we begin to hear the real authentic story of the body, alive and dynamic and very, very present in the moment to moment, not in the past or the future, just right here, right now. He continues in his chapter. I sit in this moment in the shade, gazing up from the hill, up on the hill from the southwest vantage. The sun hangs fairly high in the mid-morning sky on this 4th of July, soaking the field in intense light and heat. A narrow, continually expanding line of shade advances right to left from the southern edge, courtesy of the row of trees. The field is overgrown, the grass tall, dried to browns and golds, gone completely to seed. Droplets of white hang above it, dabbed there by the abundance of wild daisies the cows haven't got to cropping yet. White butterflies flutter here and there, and an occasional dragonfly, the large kind, patrolling low and fast over the grass through the languid air, like the marvellous, improbable, carboniferous creature that it is, with its two pairs of delicately laced, transparent, extremely versatile wings, on the wing in search of mosquitoes. Two scrub trees stand in the field by themselves in the southwest corner right in front of me, and a few bigger ones shade the shed from the either side. Although there is a hot, hazy feel to the day. The sky behind me is blue, mostly cloudless, and yet in my field of vision The sky above the field, fringed by the large, more distant trees beyond the upper field, is entirely white. So for the next part of our practice, without opening our eyes, can we open to our senses and see the room, the world around us, just through our senses? Can we open to the sense of pressure, giving us an idea of the surface, the chair, the bed, the mat, of being connected to the earth? And maybe through that, a sense of its texture, its softness or hardness, its shape, its contours, and how that shapes our own posture. Perhaps we have a sense of temperature, and even through closed eyes, a sense of light or shade or color. And so we can connect to the temperature of air, maybe air currents, and a sense of the light that might be in the room around us. Perhaps we notice smells. Sometimes we can smell the blossoms of spring if the window's open, or the cooking of neighbors. We smell maybe perfume or something else in the room. Getting a sense of the outer landscape through the inner senses. And of course, there's sound. As I'm saying this, I can hear my neighbor turning on his television. So even with my eyes closed and sitting here in my chair, I get a sense of the world around me, constantly changing. Life, just like Jon Kabat-Zinn sitting in that field watching light and shadow and the different details ever changing. We get a sense of that just from opening to our senses as we sit here. Perhaps you hear traffic on the road or birds. Maybe you hear your own breathing. As you connect to your body again, are there any details that you notice now that you didn't notice before? Is there something new happening in the inner or outer landscape? You can reconnect to just being with body and breath while I read you the rest of this chapter. Walking back along the path below the field and the farmhouse after sitting in the grass, gazing at the field for some time, the expanses of red fescue to my left are somehow redder than when I came. And now I'm seeing large splotches of purple here and there in the grass that might be flowering wild peas, which I had barely noticed before. The yellow lilies abundantly populating cut-out circles at the edges of the large lawn are more yellow, their micro-motion, almost a bouncing in the light breeze, more apparent to my eye. I see far more dragonflies nearby than I had earlier, and notice how the swallows, which before I barely saw at all, are flitting and swooping in low over the tall grass, back and forth across the lawn to the ample dabbles and streaks of oranges and pinks, reds, blues, purples, and golds. The farmer loves his flowers, all defined by an overflowing magnificence of brilliant yellow sedum, with its succulent greenery spilling along the expansive horizontal lines of a two-tiered rock wall garden that rises from the far edge of the lawn below the house. When I come to the road, I turn right, uphill, for veritably it is all the same hill, towards my house, knowing that later this afternoon the field and the walk I will take along the same trajectory will be entirely different, and that difference will make me different, will require me to be different, meaning present afresh for what will be offered up to the senses in whatever moment I arrive. And it's always so, summer or winter, spring or fall, yesterday or today, in rain and gloom and snow, at night under the stars, I am always arriving. It is always already here, just as it is, always the same field, but never the same. In walking these paths, there is less and less separation between me and the view when I give myself over to attending, when I allow myself to come to and live within my senses. Subject, the seer, and the object, what is seen, unite in the moment of seeing. Otherwise, it's not seeing. One moment I am separate from a conventional scene as I described to myself in my head. The next moment there is no scene, no description, only being here, only seeing, only drinking in through the eyes and the other senses, so pure they already know how to drink in whatever is presented, without any direction at all, without any narrative at all, without any thought. In such moments there is only walking, only standing, only sitting, or for that matter, only lying in the field, only feeling the air. Of all the senses, it is vision, the domain of the eyes, that dominates in language and metaphor. And as I'm reading this part of the chapter, why not open your eyes and stay in meditation and just take in the room around you as light and shadow, as form and texture, and see if it's possible to stay with the words that I'm reading and just see as seeing what is in the world around you. Jon Kabat-Zinn continues, we speak of our view of the world and of ourselves in gaining insight and perspective. We exhort each other to look and then to see, which is as different from looking as hearing is from listening, or smelling is from sniffing. Seeing is apprehending, taking hold, drinking in, cognizing relationships, including their emotional texture, perceiving what is actually here. Carl Jung observed that we should not pretend to understand the world only by the intellect. We apprehend it just as much through feeling. And Marcel Proust puts it this way: the true journey of discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes, but in having fresh eyes. We see what we want to see, not what is actually before our eyes. We look, but we might not apprehend or comprehend. We all have our blind spots and our blindnesses, and yet we can, if motivated, tune our seeing just as we can attune an instrument, thereby increasing its sensitivity, its range, its clarity, its empathy. The goal would be to see things more as they actually are, rather than how we would like them to be or fear them to be, or only registering what we are socially conditioned to see or feel. If Jung was correct, we apprehend with our feelings, yes, but then we had best be intimate with them and know them for what they are, or they will provide only distorted lenses for any real seeing or real knowing. One way or another, as it does with the other senses, our own mind often obscures our capacity to see clearly. For this reason, if we wish to experience life fully and take hold of it fully, we will need to train ourselves to see through or behind the appearances of things. We will need to cultivate intimacy with the stream of our own thinking, which colors everything in the sensory domain. If we are to perceive the interior and exterior landscapes, including events and occurrences, to the degree that they can be known in their actuality as they truly are. And then he includes a poem. This poem is by William Stafford, and it's called You Reading This, Be Ready. Starting here, what do you want to remember? How sunlight creeps along a shining floor? What scent of old wood hovers? What softened sound from outside fills the air? Will you ever bring a better gift for the world than the breathing respect that you carry wherever you go right now? Are you waiting for time to show you some better thoughts? When you turn around, starting here, lift this new glimpse that you found. Carry into evening all that you want from this day. This interval you spent reading or hearing this, keep it for life. What can anyone give you greater than now? Starting here, right in this room, when you turn around. So you can just spend maybe a few minutes to absorb that. See what lands from today's reading or today's practice. Reconnect to the inner landscape, the exterior, outer landscape, and connect to this sense of just being a presence and awareness Just observing the flow of whatever happens. And of course, we know the practice never ends. As you go through this week ahead, why not revisit today's practice and the idea of connecting to inner landscape and outer landscape through the senses, through new eyes, being prepared to see yourself and see the world as it is. And if you are aware of the preconditioned and pre-perceptions and pre-beliefs that we carry around with us, and through the practice, we can just know that landscape too, the landscape of the thinking mind and the habits of thought that we carry around with us. And maybe just like, taking off a pair of glasses, just open your eyes and see the world as it is, even if it's slightly blurry or slightly different without the glasses. At least we don't have those, metaphorical glasses on. We take off our thoughts, take off our beliefs. What do we actually see that is really here? So that can be your practice as you go forward through the week. And if you're watching on this recording, you can maybe do some journaling around that. For those of us who are here, we can maybe start wiggling fingers and toes. Take a stretch, a yawn, a sigh, if you can. And we'll come back to maybe having a little discussion about what's appeared in today's practice. And I'll end the recording here.